Did you know that in 1993, Disney had to change the lyrics to the opening song of Aladdin because they were so racist that they were protested by the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee? The original lyrics to Arabian Nights describe the Middle East as a place where they cut off your ear if they don't like your face, further saying it's barbaric, but hey, it's home. The movie went on to make over $500 million and become a staple for children all throughout the United States. But this is just the tip of the iceberg of portrayals of stereotypes of Arab, Middle Eastern, and Muslim people, three groups often conflated while also being seen as backward, barbaric, and of course, uncivilized. Understanding the root causes of these biases and perceptions is essential to countering the rhetorical attacks against the Palestinian people that justify the occupations, sieges, and bombings that they are and have been victims of. And while it might seem weird to spark discourse right now with a children's movie like Aladdin, research shows that Islamophobia and by extension anti-Arab sentiment affects public opinion on American foreign policy, including but not limited to our perception of American intervention in Israel and Palestine. In Real Bad Arabs, How Hollywood Vilifies a People, author Jack Shaheen analyzes 1,000 films made since 1896 that portray Arab people. In 936 of these films, Arabs are portrayed negatively. By contrast, only 12 films were positive depictions, and mind you, this analyzed films that came out before 9/11 when anti-Arab discrimination became even more widespread. Shaheen argues that many of these ideas especially stem from the Orientalism of British and French authors who visited the region now known as the Middle East after the two empires took control of it from the Ottoman Empire, carving up the region into many of the nation states that exist today. But in terms of major motion pictures and industry grounded in the United States, anti-Arab stereotypes and tropes have almost always supported US agendas in that region. For example, the Oscar-winning historical epic movie Exodus came out in 1960 and depicted a foundational story of Israel told from the perspective of Jewish people arriving from Europe. The movie was based on a best-selling book that only came out a few years prior and has been credited with Americanizing the narrative of Israel by making that foundation story akin to the American colonist foundation story, finding new, undeveloped land and establishing their independence by taking up arms against the British and the dangerous native population. In the words of Shaheen, though, the movie's one-dimensional characterization of Palestinians and lack of showcasing their stories and perspectives introduced filmgoers to the Arab-Israeli conflict and peopled it with heroic Israelis and sleazy, brutal Arabs. And while you may have never heard of this random book or movie from 1960, even figures like President Obama have cited the author as an introduction or a starting point to his understanding of the Middle East. And going into the 2000s, Palestinian intellectuals like Edward Said have said that this story specifically still provides the main narrative model that dominates American thinking of Israel and Palestine. But this was only a starting point, as in the later years of the 20th century, real terror attacks by Arab extremists were dramatized and sensationalized to further preconceived ideas that saw Arabs and Islamic people as a whole as threat to peace and order in the West. For example, the plot of the 1977 movie Black Sunday revolves around an Israeli agent working with the FBI to stop a Palestinian terrorist who wants to blow up 80,000 attendees at the Super Bowl, including the President of the United States. And these notions played out in real wars themselves, like the infamous case of the Nair testimony, where a young girl completely lied about having seen Iraqi soldiers take babies out of incubators and leave them to die. And this false testimony was used to build public support for the Persian Gulf War by George Bush Sr. And like father, like son, as we all know, George Bush Jr. lied about Arab nations having weapons of mass destruction to justify the Iraq War. And my earlier claim holds true in that throughout the 2000s, countless war dramas came out that sensationalized the stories of US soldiers in the Middle East at the expense of furthering stereotypes about Arab and Muslim people. And this includes the opening installation of the biggest movie franchise of all time. In Marvel's Iron Man, which had a script that was approved by the Pentagon, the white American main character spends much of the movie kidnapped by an extremist group in the Middle East. And while the overall message of the movie included important commentary about war profiteering, the villainous Middle Eastern characters fit almost all the popular stereotypes exacerbated by the war on terror. In fact, in this post-9/11 period, hate crimes against Arab and Muslim people became 5 times more common than they were before. And we rarely come across depictions of Arab and Middle Eastern people in their full humanity, laughing, smiling, and being close with one another. Anything different about the culture of the region becomes mocked, demonized, and used as a talking point about the backwardness of the people in the Middle East. And even in the cases where there is something to be criticized about an Arab society, because of the racialization of these issues, the effort to support people on the ground in domestic social movements becomes overshadowed by the choice to invade and use military might to get what the West wants. It's the same civilizing mission that has long justified Western colonialism, imperialism, and intervention. And with this pop culture foundation framing most of our perspectives of the Middle East, it becomes clear why it's so easy for politicians to dehumanize Arab people more generally and Palestinians more specifically. And it's because a lot of us as Americans have already been indoctrinated to see people of that region as less than human. And if you haven't already done so, it's imperative to diagnose and deconstruct those beliefs. But did you learn something new, and do you have anything to add? Let me know in the comments and follow for more.